Hi everyone, so this video is going to be looking at trigonometric differentiation. Now again, these basic rules come from page 25 of our log tables, so make sure that you have that with you when you are completing questions on differentiation and especially when completing your exam. So our basic rules for, first of all, where we have the function y is equal to sine x, the derivative dy dx is equal to cos x. And where we have y is equal to cos x, the derivative is minus sine x. Those rules can be found on page 25. You don't have to learn them off, and they'll be in the log tables for you. So what we need to look at is when the trigonometric differentiation becomes a little bit more complicated. So where we have to introduce the sine rule, product rule, quotient rule, for example. So if we look at, for example, y is equal to 3 cos x minus 5x. Something like this. So when we're looking at dy dx, the cos x is the trigonometric part of the function here. And we know that when y is equal to cos x, the derivative is minus sine x. The 3 in front of the cos x is just a constant. It's not going to affect the derivative. So the derivative of this section here, the 3 cos x, is simply minus 3 sine x. And then we differentiate minus 5x as normal, so that becomes minus 5. So that's a basic example of looking at introducing our trig differentiation. Another example where we may have to use the chain rule, for example, is y is equal to the sine of 3x minus 7. Now, in trigonometric differentiation, there's 3 components that we need to be careful of. You need to make sure that you differentiate the trig function correctly. So that means that sine becomes cos. So that's the first thing we need to write down. So it's the cos. So sine becomes cos when you're looking at the derivative. That's step 1. The angle of a trigonometric function always remains the same. So that bracket will carry down to the derivative. The last thing that we need to worry about is we have to multiply by the derivative of the bracket. So the derivative of a trigonometric function is always going to be differentiate the trig function, keep the angle the same, and then multiply by the derivative of this bracket here. So this bracket here, 3x minus 7, the derivative of that is 3, and so therefore our full derivative is 3 cos 3x minus 7. And that's our final answer. You can do it using the chain rule if you wish. So if we look at y is equal to sine u, where u is equal to 3x minus 7, it's the same thing. dy du will be cos u. du dx is 3. And remember to use the chain rule, dy dx is dy du multiplied by du dx. So that's 3 cos u, or 3 cos 3x minus 7. So we do end up with the same answer at, sorry, I'll write this underneath so that we can see it, 3 cos 3x minus 7. So we do end up with the same answer at the end. It just depends on which method you feel more comfortable with. So remember, there are 3 components. Sine, the trigonometric function, you differentiate that, so sine becomes cos. The angle stays the same, and you multiply by the derivative of the angle, so the derivative of the bracket, and that's where the 3 comes from. So I might just look at another example there. If we look at y is equal to sine squared x, all right? Now, one thing about trigonometry, sine squared x is the same thing as sine x to be squared. It means the exact same thing. So we treat it, in terms of differentiation, we treat it as this here. Now for this, we would need to use the chain rule. So we say y is equal to u squared, where u is equal to sine x, all right? dy du is 2u, du dx is cos x, and therefore dy dx is the multiplication of the 2u cos x, which is 2 sine x cos x. So that's looking at a couple of different questions in trigonometric differentiation. Remember the three key components. Differentiate the trig function, keep the angle the same, and multiply by the derivative of the angle. That's in terms of using your chain rule. And where we have powers of trigonometric functions like this, rewrite them as the function to the power first of all, and then apply your chain rule.